Welcome to the Mental Health Multiverse.
We're your hosts,
HB
and LB.
We'll be breaking down some of our favorite movies and TV shows as they relate to mental health, self-healing, and overall wellness, while also breaking stigmas, shedding light on misinterpretations, and helping you understand yourself a little better.
If you're also on a healing journey and enjoy pop culture, stick around.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Mental Health Multiverse. I am HB, joined with my co-host LB, and today we are talking about Zootopia. Yay! Zootopia is about a bunny named Judy who wants to help make the world a better place by joining the police force to protect and serve within the mammal metropolis / utopia, Zootopia, where anyone can be anything. But being a bunny in a predominantly bigger animal field, she's given the task of being a meter maid and is having to grapple with proving that she is a quote-unquote real cop. All the while, cops are trying to find animals that have gone missing, and Judy is given the hardest case to solve in 48 hours, or she'll lose her job. With the help of a sly fox named Nick Wilde, Judy quickly learns that life isn't as pretty as a slogan and is actually quite messy, which is one of my favorite quotes at the end of the movie.
It's a good one. So this movie came out March 4th, 2016, and I can almost viscerally remember seeing this movie in theaters. I had not yet moved out and into San Francisco, but I was in San Francisco and I saw it with a semi-new friend who quickly became a best friend. And we were just sobbing the entire time through this movie. Like the scene where Judy's on the train going through the different districts of Zootopia, I was just the animation was just beautiful.
So beautiful, yeah.
I got chills, and then having Try Everything in the background by Shakira, just I don't know, it just did something to me. And I think it's also because I was at this period in my life where, for those who don't know my story, to make it short, basically Thanksgiving 2015, my parents found out about my secret therapy sessions and I had to move out. But it was also very pivotal because it was this huge switch for me mindset wise, in that I wanted to live and I wanted to experience life and I wanted to, as the song says, try everything. So that just really, really, really hit me in so many different ways. And I could relate to Judy, especially with her unrelenting optimism, and then people telling her that you can't do this, you can't do that, you're never gonna make it, just all of these naysayers in her life, and then her not really actually doing the things out of spite and to prove them wrong, because I've lived so much of my life doing that, but really just in this very optimistic way. And it was really inspiring. And I think the movie, I think I saw this movie at a really good time in my life, at a time that I really needed to see it. And it just kind of gave me the inspiration and encouragement and motivation to keep going and to live and have this more optimistic perspective on life. So that was great.
Yeah, it sounds like you had a lot of parallels, because if you moved to the city shortly after, then you went to your own Zootopia and you got to experience life kick you in the butt the same way.
Oh my god, boy did it. When Judy gets to her first apartment and it's this tiny little box and there's noisy neighbors. I moved into this, I don't want to say sketchy, and it was just an interesting apartment. It was more of an in-law unit in someone's first level of the house, but it was there were raccoons living in the walls. Not when I had initially moved in, but over the years. I lived there for about 3 years, and we got raccoons in the walls, a flea infestation. I definitely had rats.
Oh my god.
It was
a Zootopia.
It was Zootopia. Unfortunately, San Francisco is not necessarily a utopia in which everyone lives together in harmony or coexists. But it was one of those things where yeah, my apartment wasn't amazing and I didn't even have a full kitchen, but I made it work. I got one of those, I got a toaster oven and I had one of those hot plates. And it was just my space after living my entire life in a really abusive childhood home and in a place where I didn't feel safe and I didn't feel like anything was really mine. I didn't have privacy. I wasn't allowed to set boundaries, all these things. Anyway, so yeah, moving out into San Francisco, it was like my apartment, my space, my just like mine. And
Yeah.
I wasn't able to be on the Soul episode, but I know you had read my little notes. It was like a combination of at the end of the movie when Joe is on the train just admiring the little things in life, and then Judy with her optimism and just like making the most out of any situation and always seeing the brighter side of things really like summed up Marissa 2016 through 2019. And so yeah, anyway, all of that to say, this movie has a very, very special place in my heart, and I'm really excited to talk about it.
Yeah. I saw this movie while babysitting, which is how I saw most of these movies. And I think to no one's surprise, I actually hadn't seen the whole thing before recording this episode.
What do you mean? What do you mean you haven't seen an entire movie? We've never talked about that ever on this podcast.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I definitely like had the second half of the movie memorized because
Mm,
like using the carrot pen to record things and the sloths being the DMV, like all of that with the kids I babysit, like when they watch the movie, I don't always sit and watch it with them. Like sometimes I'm making dinner, sometimes I'm reading a book or on my phone, So I didn't see the beginning when Judy is sort of doing the little reenactment of predator, like primordial animals,
yeah,
and she was like, blood, blood. I was like, this is hilarious. I love it. I loved her
so
immediately from that
dramatic.
moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I hadn't seen that. And I also hadn't seen how her relationship with Nick starts. From the point that I have seen Zootopia, it's always like they already know each other. So that was
Yeah.
interesting to see how she sort of followed him around and I enjoy the way that their relationship develops because as someone who pretty much only saw the second half of this movie anytime I saw it while the kids were watching it while I was babysitting,
Yeah.
it did seem like they had a pretty strong relationship and it felt very like sibling rivalry sort of, or very much like they're consistently trying to one up one another or out trick one
Yeah.
another, that kind of thing. And so I thought that they had like always known each other when I was watching the movie. So it was cool to see how they do actually meet and how he is a sly fox doing, sly things, and she is being, her meter maid police officer self and trying to figure out what the sly fox is doing. And I also like that her parents, I will talk about this a lot more, but like her parents sort of instilled in her this fear of foxes, right?
Hmm.
And she has a valid reason because she was severely bullied and injured by a fox in her
Yeah.
childhood. And so they send her to the city reluctantly with fox repellent, and she sees the fox and she sees Nick specifically, going into this. He kind of looks suspicious, right? And then he goes into this elephant cafe, not coffee
Ice cream
shop,
parlor.
ice cream parlor. And then immediately sorry, the light in my living room just fell.
Oh my God. Do you need to go take care of that?
Um, BRB.
Mm. While HB figures out her lighting situation, I'd like to remind y'all of the offerings HB and I have outside of this podcast. HB is the creator and founder of Geeknasium, an online workout library for nerds with fun pop culture themed workouts that can help you channel and feel like your favorite characters and is accessible to all fitness levels. LB, me, hi, has a new shame-free self-paced online course called Better Than Perfect to help you transform the inner critic into self-compassion. So, if you like the things we talk about here on the podcast and are looking for additional resources or support, feel free to check those out. Yay. Okay.
Yay. Do you remember what I was talking about? I was talking about her meeting Nick.
Yes, and how you had only ever seen the second half of the movie, so in your brain they like had already established a
Oh yeah.
relationship.
When she goes into the ice cream parlor, she immediately drops all of her preconceived notions about him. which I really love, even though he does end up being a sly fox who is doing sketchy things. She lets that sort of prejudice that she has about foxes go
Yeah.
and gives him the benefit of the doubt. And I really like that about her and her character, that she truly just does see the good. She saw the good, and I liked that a lot. And yeah, that's like my favorite part about the development of their
Yeah.
relationship, is that it's like they surprised each other a lot.
Yeah, I think they learned a lot from each other, and through their friendship and relationship, they had to check their own biases about, not just bunnies and foxes, but just like the world at large, I think. There were two things that came to mind when you said that. The first is the scene from Into the Spider-Verse when Peter B. Parker is explaining how he's gonna like sneak into the lab and follow the lead scientist, and Miles Morales is like, "Oh, that lady over there, that's the lead scientist." And he's like, "Oh, step 4, check my biases."
Hmm.
um
Yeah.
and then the other thing was, I'm losing it. Oh no. Oh, there's this concept of like assuming positive intent that I learned about a few years ago, but it's definitely something that Judy embodies really well, I think. Not even really just seeing the good in everyone, but assuming positive intent in people's actions. So, like, not just writing them off that, like, oh, they're a bad person, or oh, they meant to offend me, or, whatever. Of course, like you said, her assumptions about Nick end up being true, but she does her own investigation first before just like outright confronting him and being like, you're hustling people and blah 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 blah. But yeah, I really like the development of their relationship. It does feel very sibling-ish, or just like, those friends that can rib on each other and poke fun at each other without anyone taking it personally, which are some of my favorite friendships. So yeah, and they're really cute.
Something that you said brought up for me. I think there's something about towing that line too, about like you don't want to be naive about the way that
Mm-hmm.
people treat you, because I think there's like a set of people, like if you are too naive about someone's intent, you can be taken advantage of, right?
Right.
And then if you are too judgmental, then you are going to always assume certain things about people. But I like that assume positive intent thing. Are if you have a genuine read on a person, if you're able to get like some sort of genuine read on a person, I think it's safe to assume positive intent, if that makes sense. Like for me personally, I I experience this sometimes in like the cosplay and fitness community. Like sometimes people congratulate me and they share my stuff. And I wonder if it's like, are they genuinely doing this because they like my stuff, or are they like wanting to get something from me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And you just have to like, it's just, there's some sort of balance about like instincts and just assuming positive intent, where it's like, I'm just going to have to assume that they are sharing this because they truly appreciate my work and like what I do. And I will be proven wrong if they try to get something from me in the
Yeah.
future. And I won't let them take advantage of me. It's like, it's a delicate balance.
Yeah. And I think it's something that Judy does very well and portrays well, in that she's very optimistic without being naive, or like she's optimistic without veering into toxic positivity. Should we kind of rip the band-aid off on a particular subject related to this movie that may be a popular opinion, or
Yeah. So it's something of note that we should bring up and then move on from.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this movie is about cops. And this is not going to be a focal point of our episode. And also, to me, her being a cop is not the focal point of the movie. I feel like personally, they could have done away with her being a cop, and she could have just been a bunny chasing her dreams in Zootopia and stumbled upon this case and takes it upon herself to solve it. And it would have been the exact same movie. So to me, that's not even a big part of the movie. I think for me, this movie is not pro cop. It focuses a lot more on unlearning stereotypes and biases, chasing your dreams, and balancing hard work, optimism, and determination. And that's all I'll say on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a time and a place to have the cop conversation, but I don't think our conversation about Zootopia is it. I don't think we need to go there for
Yeah.
this. And, on the note of Judy wanting to be a cop, I think she just really wants to help people. And I think that's what we can focus on here is like her desire and passion and determination to make the world a better place. And for
Mm-hmm.
her, she thought that would be becoming a cop, which,
That's something that she kind of unlearns. I mean, she's still a cop by the end of the movie, but the whole her whole development is thinking that this is the one way she can make the world a better place, because this is Zootopia's whole slogan is like anyone can be anything. And she's like, okay, I want to be a person that helps. And this is the best way or the only way I can or want to help. And so she does it. And then she realizes, as you know, we're skipping so far ahead, but by the end of the movie, she's like, so it turns out life is a lot more complicated than just a pretty slogan, and it's a lot more messy, but that's okay. That's just life. And all we can do is show up in the best way that we know how. You have
yeah.
the quote written down. I should have just read it, but that's fine. We'll get to it. So anyway, yeah, like we've touched on, I appreciate how determined Judy is. So like you said, from the very beginning of the movie, they're at like a talent show, or they're at some kind of a they're doing some kind of performance and talking about how anyone can be anything, and because of how far the animals have evolved, like the sheeps don't need to cower in a herd anymore, and prey don't need to be afraid of predators, and blah 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 blah. So this one leopard thing is like, I'm gonna be an estuary, and the sheep is like, I'm gonna be an astronaut, and Judy's like, and I'm gonna be a cop. And I love the little hub thing that's like playing the music for them off on the
Yeah.
side, and he plays this like funky tune when she's like, and I'm gonna be a cop. And then, you know, everyone's kind of making fun of her. Even her parents are like, oh my god, I love the exchange that she has with her parents, and I appreciate that you wrote it down, because I'm just gonna read it. But everyone recognizes that Judy's dreams of becoming a cop are kind of far fetched, and no one's ever done it before. And so they say these things to her, and they're like, and I appreciate that they're trying. They're trying to like keep her grounded and not get her hopes up so that she's not disappointed. And they're trying to be good parents, but they like inadvertently show that they're not very supportive of her dreams. But she like does not let that get her down. Anyway, so the whole exchange is that her dad is like, you ever wonder how your mom and me got to be so darn happy? Well, we gave up on our dreams and we settled, right? See, that's the beauty of complacency, Judy. If you don't try anything new, you'll never fail. And Judy's like, but I like trying, actually. Her mother comes in and is like, what your father means is that it's going to be difficult for you to become a police officer. There's never been a bunny cop. Never. Bunnies don't do that. She's like, well, guess I have to be the first one. I'm going to make the world a better place. And I love that. And then also, like, she gets into the whole scuffle with the fox, and even the fox is like, you can't do this. And literally every single person that she comes into in her childhood, at the police force academy, even when she is at precinct 1 with all of the other police officers, and they're all like, you're not a real cop, or you can't do this, even though she's there and she's doing it, but they're still telling her she can't. And she just kind of proves them all wrong. And she does, I think the beauty of it is that she's doing it in her own way. Like, there's been this preconceived notion of how the job is supposed to be done, who can do the job, and she brings something new to the table, which I really really appreciate it.
Yeah, I like the sequence of her going through school and the like her training officer sort of being like, "You're dead. You're
Yeah.
dead." Like every time she does something wrong, she's dead. And then you start to see by the end she is piecing together how she can get through these things. Like, no, she can't climb the ice wall by herself, but she can hop on the other people to get to the top. Like, she's very resourceful in how she
Yeah.
succeeds. And I think that's exactly what you're trying to say. I do think it is cool that we get to see one of the quote unquote little guys win and be part of the something that they have been told is not for them, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I related to that a lot. I'm sorry. I just can't remember if I already said this. I just related to Judy a lot in that because there were so many internal and external voices during that period of my life when I saw the movie that were telling me like, you can't move out. You can't do this. You can't do that. Like, this is the way it's always been. And it just is that way. And you just have to keep doing that. And questioning those things and doing something differently was a little scary. But I mean, in the end, it all worked out, you know? Well, I mean, I'm not at the end, so we'll see. But
Yeah.
as of right now, things have worked out and things are good.
Yeah, it reminds me to like in the opposite sort of vein for me, it reminds me of being a larger bodied person in the fitness industry. I personally don't get a lot of hate, so I'm grateful for that. But like there are a lot of people who say that my body type does not belong as a fitness professional, and there are people who don't trust me as a fitness professional because I am in a larger body. And I am a size inclusive, sort of health at every size focused, body neutral. Like I'm not focused on aesthetics. I don't help people lose weight. That's not my goal. I'm not a dietitian. I don't help people with their nutrition. I truly am just here to help people move their bodies in a way that feels good for them. And there are people who are adamantly against that and think that I'm promoting obesity because I exist in the body that I exist in. And I think just like continuing to show up is all that you can do. Like you could just, I'm showing up, I'm existing in the body that I have, and I'm doing things a little bit differently than how it's traditionally been done. And I'm not the only one, gratefully, thankfully. There's like a whole, section of the internet that is dedicated to this type of fitness. And I have curated my life so that I only see that kind of stuff. So,
Right.
yeah, it just reminds me of that a little about, just succeeding in your own way and doing things a little bit differently than maybe society or the stereotypes tell you they should be done.
Yeah. Yeah. Like when Judy's in the boxing ring with the rhino, she realizes that she can use his force and strength against him, right? Yeah. She's, like you said, she's just very resourceful and she thinks outside of the box and kind of comes at different situations with her own unique perspective. And again, like going back to, and I think we've talked about this in a bunch of different episodes, but just going back to like everyone brings something to the table. And on that same vein, like don't discredit yourself. Like in the same way that we don't want to discredit other people's experiences or perspectives, don't discredit what you might bring to the table. Like if Judy had listened to all the people telling her that she couldn't do it, those animals might still be missing, you know? But I also appreciate one of the big plot points of the movie is that she does fail.
Mhm.
She like succeeds, but
She made a mistake.
she made a mistake. Yeah. And it kind of hurt her friendship with Nick. It made her question a lot of things about the police force, really, and also the world as she had known or perceived it. And so she like
And her
resigns.
own
Oh,
and her own prejudices and her own
right.
biases,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. So she resigns and she goes back to her parents' farm and actually has a really great conversation with the fox that hurt her at the beginning of the movie. And
That was so touching. Oh my gosh.
I saw this on I think it was Instagram or Facebook, but someone was like breaking down the wording he uses and I wish I'd wrote it down, but they're like this fox clearly went to therapy because he's using so much like therapy speak in a non-manipulative way of just being like I recognize that I had a lot of insecurities that manifested itself into unchecked rage and aggression and I
Mhm.
apologize for my actions. What I really like too is the ripple effect people can have when they stand up for their values and embody what they believe in, even if that is changing, right? Like when Judy decides that she wants to follow her dreams and become friends with a fox, basically, her parents are like, oh, maybe we need to check our biases too. And they like learned a lot from her. And they end up like partnering with the fox and they have like a successful business now. Anyway, yeah, I just really like that.
Yeah. And I think, again, something we touched on in the Soul episode is like seeing that moment where she moves home, like as a failure, like as her failing.
Right.
And I do think it's really important to talk about that moment in the film of the mistake that she made, because she did the best with the resources that she had
Mm-hmm.
and also her own preconceived notions. And she came to a conclusion that ended up being hurtful for a set of beings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she says, I was only stating the facts of the case, which to her, in her mind, was not hurtful. But to an entire group of people, she created fear around predators.
Yes. Yeah.
And that also had a ripple effect, a negative one, that created a like chaos and distrust of anyone who could potentially be a predator.
Yeah. It like
And
fed into the division of prey versus predator. And I think the media kind of fed into that. It was kind of a throwaway line, but after she does her interview about the situation and then Nick confronts her about it and was like, that actually was really like hurtful and offensive to me as a predator. And they get into a whole conversation about it. And then he walks away and the media swarms her and they're like, were you just threatened by that fox? And she was like, no, he's my friend. And they're like, so you're saying we can't trust our friends? Just like I hate obviously and love that they included that in the movie because the media can kind of skew things and feed into a lot of fear and a lot of negativity and especially a lot of stereotypes and prejudices about certain demographics. And then we see yeah, like you said, the ripple effect of what happens afterward and just the chaos and division and animosity that has been fueled by that. And obviously, as we learn, like that was kind of the whole goal behind the mastermind behind this whole thing.
yeah, the person who ended up being the mastermind behind it all was targeting predators only so that people would be fearful of predators, which is terrifying. And I'm not sure if there's a direct allegory for this, like if the creators were trying to make this a parallel to anything that's happening in real life, but it is kind of scary to see that there is a lot of this happening in the world even still now today,
Yeah.
almost 10 years later. A lot of fear mongering and propaganda and just these people are different. Let's treat them differently. Let's be afraid of them. And it's just like, come on, man. We're all just trying to survive and live cohesively. It's like, can't we just,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think
it's tough.
Gazelle, aka Shakira, says something to that effect of like, she's at like a rally or something, and she's like, this is not the Zootopia I know. The Zootopia I know prides itself on its diversity and the fact that people can, or, prey and predators can coexist peacefully and things like that. Yeah. So speaking of Zootopia, their whole slogan is anyone can be anything. And Judy and Nick have this conversation about why Nick doesn't necessarily believe that because of the way that he was bullied, basically, and perceived. And he says something to the effect of, like, if the world is just going to see me as gosh,
Shifty, untrustworthy.
yeah, if the world is only going
There's
to see me as a shifty and untrustworthy fox, there's no point in trying to be anything more than that. And I was curious to pick your brain about your thoughts on that conversation.
I had a lot of thoughts about that conversation. I can relate to that conversation that they had. First of all, that scene is heartbreaking when he's like screaming, "Tell me, what did I do wrong? What did I do?" My heart just
Yeah.
breaks for that baby because it's like, you didn't do anything wrong. This is like people's own skewed views of you that is
Yeah.
making like of foxes that is making them treat you this way. And so I think there's a lot to be said about the ways that we protect ourselves when people treat us that way. And sometimes the route that we go is changing who we are, because what he says after that is, I was never going to let anyone see that they got to me, right? So he built up this wall. He decided that he was just going to be what people expected because it was easier than the pain that comes along with people not seeing you and understanding you, right? And so he decided, if people are always going to perceive me this way, I might as well just be the bad person that they think that I am.
Mm.
And I relate to this in terms of body image again, because that's what I do.
Yeah.
But I always put myself in a box when I was younger as ugly, undesirable, the fat friend, that sort of thing. And it just became my identity. I was the wallflower. I was, I was never the one who had a boyfriend. I was always the funny best friend. I was always the side character of my own life. And I let that be the box that I was in because that's just where people put me in
Mm.
general. And, society points a finger at you regardless to other you, no matter what that othering is, right? And I think that we go to that place to protect ourselves and become that the boxed in version. Like someone put us
Yeah.
in a box, so we decided to stay in that box because it felt easier. But where you can really shine is by proving society wrong, right? Like you are not a monolith in your otherness. Not every person who is in a larger body deserves to be in the box that society puts you in, right? Like, in fact, nobody deserves to be put in the boxes that society puts us in. And so success really comes from getting out of that box and living. It took me a lot of unlearning to figure out who I actually am because of how often, and I still struggle with this. Like I am not cured. My healing is not finished. I think we
Mhm.
talk about this all the time. Healing is not linear. Like I still put myself in that box all the time. It's why I struggle in romantic relationships. It's why I struggle with comparing myself to other people. Like that very insecure little girl who feels put in the box and othered by society is still here. She's still inside me. And I try to talk to her and be gentle with her every day.
Yeah.
But I also actively work to, I mean, I'm not going to say I actively work to prove society wrong, but I actively work to unlearn what society taught me about who I am because of my body size, you know?
Yeah. And I think Judy does the same thing. It's not so much that she doesn't like go around being like, look, everybody, I'm a bunny cop. See, I did it. Ha 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 ha. Ha. I proved you all wrong. She just does her thing and isn't really necessarily seeking that external validation. Like she's showing up as her full authentic self. And that in and of itself has a bigger ripple effect because it's not about her, right? Like she has so decentered herself and she has removed all ego from her journey and from her situation. And I think that's like a really important lesson for a lot of adults. And I know we say this almost every single episode, but there are so many themes in all of the movies we've talked about this season where I'm like, there are so many adults who need to hear this in the way that this movie is presenting it because it just, I don't want to say boils down in a negative way, but it takes a complicated concept and just kind of wraps it up nice and neat. And of course, again, not everything in life is nice and neat, but I think these are all really great conversation starters for anyone at any stage of of their life. It just so happens that they're being presented through animation.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also love her quote that she has after Nick tells her that story, and she sits with it for a second, and she says, "Nick, you are so much more than that." So I feel like anyone who has put themselves in a box because it feels easier, just know that you are so much more than that. And it is boiled down to one line, but it's also true.
Yeah. I am so curious where Judy got such determination because, like, granted, her parents aren't like outrightly abusive or anything, but I grew up with caregivers who were very much like, you can't do this, you can't be this. So in the same way, I like very much put myself in this box of like, okay, I am not good enough, I am not smart enough. But it was like really interesting because on one hand, I like really kind of dimmed my own light, sh- shrank
Shrunk. Yeah.
shrunk into myself, played it very small. And at the same time, I was trying so hard to prove myself, to prove that I was good enough, that I was worthy enough. And I think that's like a really disorganized, complicated, dysfunctional environment and mindset to grow up in because now as an adult, it feels like I have to work so hard to now really find myself and know who I am so that I can show up authentically. And I feel like it's not so much that I'm like breaking out of the box, but like the box is just like not even there. And I'm giving myself as much space and as much room as I need to take up without being worried if I'm taking up too much of the space.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was one of my questions. Another question, another kind of thing that Judy keeps being told is that she's not a real cop because she's a meter maid. And so I just kind of wanted to get your opinion on what it means to be a real anything. For me, when I was watching the movie, I was thinking about creative things specifically, like a writer, painter, actor, singer. What qualifies someone to be a real anything? Like when I was watching it, I was thinking of you and being a fitness professional, right? Like I as you brought up, because you live in a larger body and you don't look like how society or people in general may think of a quote unquote fitness professional. Like, have you ever experienced someone telling you like, oh, you can't be a real fitness professional or anything?
Yeah, I think, like I said earlier in the episode, I think that people invalidate me as a fitness professional because of not only the way I look, but also some of my credentials, right? Like, I'm not yet a certified personal trainer.
Mm,
I am in the group exercise space. And so the training that I got is a little bit different. And I think that there are some people who look at that as not as valid as, different types of training. But I'm also a type of person who never stops learning. And I think that I read the book Health at Every Size, and I stay sort of up to date on the research about why having a larger body does not necessarily equate to worse health, or how having a thinner body is not necessarily equate to better health. Like,
mm-hmm.
that's the type of stuff that I focus on. It's like I'm not going to learn that stuff in my certified personal trainer training. I
Right.
learned this stuff through practicing and research and reading books, and that's where I learn these things. And so I just think that it depends on who you ask and what they determine credentials to be, or like, do you need credentials? And I do think, I will say this, fitness influencers are not fitness professionals. If someone does not have some sort of formal fitness training, please do not take advice from them. And I do have formal fitness training, so you can take advice from me, even though
Yes.
my formal fitness training is from the group exercise space and not the personal training space. Like, it is still a certification that I got. It is a group exercise certification that I have to renew every 2 years now. And it's just, I think that that is something that you should trust and instead of going on Instagram and following an influencer who, because they look a certain way, has a large following and can now tell you these things about stuff. But it happens with acting too. You were right. Like is a writer really a writer if they've never published something? Is an actor really an actor if they've never been on stage? Is it, like, or like, I haven't been on stage in years. Does that make me, like, it's like the last time I was on stage was a very long time ago. Does that mean I am no longer an actor? And I really just think it's about how you want to define yourself, I guess, like,
Yeah. No, I was thinking about a couple episodes ago. I think we talked about this, how when you tell people you're an actor and they're like, oh, what have I seen you in? There's this
yeah,
idea that like you're not a real whatever until you have met this certain
until you can prove yourself.
tier.
Yeah.
Yeah. Until you can like prove that you've like made it or something. I think we put too much pressure on ourselves that we can't say we're a real anything until we've met XYZ requirement, or it has to look this way or that way. And again, I'm thinking of like creative things because I think we live in a society where we don't necessarily have hobbies anymore. Like
Yeah.
everything we do, either like it has to give us something more than just an outlet for creativity or fun. Like you're not a writer until you've published something. You're not a singer until you're on Spotify. You're not an actor until you can point and like show your IMDb and be like, I've been in blah, 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 blah.
I think it's
Or,
the same with entrepreneurs too.
oh, totally. Yeah.
Like,
That's something as you know, we talk about a lot just off this podcast. I have a hard time saying that I'm an entrepreneur because I don't feel like I have yet met all of those quote unquote requirements, even though I've done a lot of the work. I've taken a lot of courses. I've invested a lot of money into it. I
you
have
quit a corporate job to
like
pursue.
yeah, like I am trying now to get more comfortable with saying like I am an entrepreneur or I am a writer. I am this or that. And I think a lot of that is not just like perfectionism, but a fear of not wanting to be proven wrong, I think, or to have someone tell me because this was a big wounding of my childhood like no you're not, or you're not good enough to claim that title. I
Yeah.
think we put a lot of pressure on labeling ourselves as things because of all the reasons we just talked about. But I think bottom line is if you write fiction, poetry, nonfiction, whatever, you're a writer. If you paint and watercolor or, whatever, you're a painter. If you sing and you just enjoy singing for the heck of it, and maybe the only stage you've ever been on is your shower, you're a singer. It's, I think we're at a point in our society, time, life that we can and should reclaim a lot of these titles because they're not reserved for quote unquote professionals. And I think if we keep living in the mindset of like, oh, we can't call ourselves a singer unless we're on as big of a stage as Taylor Swift, like we're not doing ourselves any favors.
Yeah. And I also think you just have to figure out like what that definition means for you. Like, are you looking for someone to take vocal lessons with? Then like, yes, you would like a professional singer to take
Right.
those with. But like if you just enjoy singing and want to call yourself a singer, that's fine too,
And
you
also,
know?
if you don't want the label, that's okay too. You don't have
Yeah.
to make your hobbies or the things that you like necessarily your identity.
Yeah. Well, that's another good point too, is like labels are they're they don't screw labels also.
Yeah. Also, yeah, screw the labels. I feel like we've gotten so far from the conversation about Judy being a real cop, but she went through the training. She graduated from the academy, right? And just because she's not a detective or she's not a captain or she's not doing the I don't want to say hard work. Like I'm sure meter maids have a hard time and it's a lot of work, but just because she's not exactly doing the thing she wanted to do in becoming a cop doesn't make her less of a cop.
Right. Like being a meter maid does not help people, basically. It's like
At least to the point that she wanted to.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. My last question for you and this is just a fun question. A couple episodes ago, I don't even remember which episode at this point, we were talking about like what animal would we be? And we determined that you would be a unicorn. But since unicorns, I'm sorry, aren't real animals, I'm curious what in the world of Zootopia, what mammal do you think you would be?
I would be a big cat. I would be
Yeah.
some sort of big cat.
I could
Uh,
totally see you being one of the tigers that's like Shakira's backup dancer.
I did notice that all of her backup dancers were tigers, but I think they're all men, but that's fine too.
I think so too, but that's okay. Um, they're also, yeah, they're like really muscular. There's that scene on the train where the tiger sits down and he's like busting out of his shirt. And I was like, okay, tiger, what the heck?
Yeah,
Um, I think
they
for
tried to make
me,
them intimidating.
yeah, true. I think for me, I might be a bunny. I don't know. Just whenever I watch this movie, I see myself as Judy, and my boyfriend is very much Nick Wilde, just like very sarcastic. Yeah.
I was picturing you while watching it too. So
Yeah.
I was like, that's LB right there.
Yeah.
Little
Yeah.
Judy, little Judy LB.
Little Judy. Yeah, I'm kind of in a point of my life where I'm existential crisis Judy of like, I think I broke I think I broke the world based on choices that have been made, but that's fine. And I'm excited for when I can bounce back. Also, I love the scene where she confronts Nick and puts the boot on her stroller and she's like tallying up how much money he's made. Like he's like, I've been doing this since I was 12, 365 days, $200. What was it? $200 a day, 365
Yeah.
days a year, blah, 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 blah. And she's doing the math and she's like, oh my God, what did she say?
She said she's gonna arrest him for tax evasion.
No, the whole like, we might not be good at this, but we're really good at multiplying.
Oh yeah, that was
Oh
funny. That was
my God.
funny.
And as she's leaving Bunnyboro, like the population counter keeps going up because uh there were so many cute little moments in this movie. Also, there are so many Easter eggs. I was gonna write
Yes.
a list of them down, but there are just so many. So if you're curious about those, just go look them up.
Well, I had a question for you because I
Yeah.
don't know if it's an Easter egg. I'm guessing that it is, but like Duke Weaselton, is that like a nod to the Duke of Weselton?
Oh yeah, totally.
I
Definitely.
was thinking so.
And then did you
Uh,
see the Meowana DVD?
no.
So when they confront Duke Weaselton, and he's selling like bootleg DVDs basically, right front and center is a cat on the boat and it says Meowana.
I love that. No, I
Yeah.
totally missed that. Did you catch the Breaking Bad nod?
I did, but I have watched this movie so many times and I didn't realize it until I was watching it with Nate and I had the captions on and he was like, "Oh, LOL, is that a nod to Breaking Bad?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he was like, "Because I've never watched Breaking Bad and it's one of
Oh,
his favorite shows." I yeah,
well, that's
I
a
know
thing.
it's good. I know it's good. It's just not my cup of tea. The episodes that I have seen, it's like too much for me. I am a bunny, an emotional, soft, fragile bunny, emotionally vulnerable, as Nick Wilde said. So yeah, that I think that show is a little too intense for me right now, but that's okay.
That makes
Anyway,
sense.
yeah, he pointed that out, and I was like, oh my God, that's so funny.
It cracked me up. I was very, very late to the Breaking Bad train, but when I did
Mm,
watch it, I was like, it's one of those shows, and I'm not saying you have to watch it, but it's a very good show, and it's one of those shows that like it surpasses the realm of what you think is like possible with a TV show. Like it's that entertaining and like
okay.
it's one of those shows that you wish you could watch again for the first time.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? But I watched it before and during the pandemic, which was like right before and like during is when I like finished it, like lockdown. But when the what are they? Are they rams? The
Yes,
ram when the ram who was like running the I guess underground
Doug.
yeah, the underground like night what are they called? Night howler thing
Yeah,
and asks for it, basically like, Walter and Jesse are back. I was like, this is so clever. And it was so subtle. Like, I'm
it
surprised I
was.
even noticed it. It was so subtle. And then of course there's like the mob, Mr. Big.
Oh, yes. Yeah. The little rat, you come to my house.
Mhm.
And the
Uh
Godfather. Yeah.
yeah. I also just love that his daughter is like obsessed with Judy. Like that like Judy saved her
I
life
know.
and then is gonna be the godmother to her child. Like that whole little side plot, adorable. Made me so
Yes.
happy.
Yeah. I love that a lot. It's just like a cute female friendship. It's very fun. Do you have a favorite character from the movie?
I don't know. I yes. I don't remember his name though. The leopard who's like the front desk guy at
Oh, Clawhauser.
the police station. Yeah, he's my favorite, I would say. I mean, like obviously Judy for obvious
Oh,
reasons,
sure.
but like if we're talking like non-main character, him for that, absolutely
He's
adore
great.
every interaction that he has. Yeah.
He's really cute.
So
Fun fact, he has a little hidden Mickey on his spots somewhere on his face.
that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I have only seen it like once or twice because it's like a quick little flash on the screen. But anyway, yeah, he's really cute. I love his obsession with Gazelle
Yeah.
and how Chief Bogo also.
Yeah, he catches the chief looking at the video and he's like,
Yeah.
"Is that Gazelle?" He's like, "No."
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know who
Yeah.
mine would be. I just think they're, oh, no, I know. It's the little fennec fox. It's
Yes.
Nick's accomplice, the one who
Yes.
pretends he's a baby in the elephant ice cream parlor.
So
And when
good.
Judy gets him for tax evasion, he just starts laughing. And he takes off the little sticker that Judy had given him. What was it, like junior police officer or something? And he sticks it on Nick and he's like, "You're gonna need this now. Have fun with the
Have yeah.
fuzz."
So funny. Yeah, I think that's a case where like giving a small character a deep voice was genuinely funny. I don't
So
think that it was
good.
funny in Wish when the goat just like randomly had a deep voice for
I
no
haven't seen
reason.
it yet.
Oh, you haven't seen Wish yet?
No.
I thought you watched it.
No, not
Okay. Well,
yet.
we will revisit this then. But yeah,
Okay.
the goat has like a randomly deep voice in Wish for
Mm,
no reason. And it doesn't make any
it doesn't
sense.
work. Yeah. Hmm. Okay. Interesting. Well, I can emotionally and mentally prepare myself for that, I guess, when I end up watching the movie. We've talked a lot about fitness stuff, body image stuff. As far as healing goes, I don't know if I have like a direct parallel to healing. I think for me, it might be more so Nick's journey, having been bullied and traumatized as a child, and then through his relationship with Judy, unlearning a lot of that. And again, like we almost say in every episode, learning how to not view a present situation from the lens of the past, which I think is really beautiful and really important. And I love that he doesn't lose his wit and sarcasm. And he seems to be a little bit more secure in himself and who he is. And I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why when Judy does say the things that she does at the press conference about predators, that's why it hurt him so much because he felt like he was finally seen and heard by someone
Yeah.
and he felt a little betrayed when she said those things even though they weren't directly towards him. It was about predators as a whole, right? And she didn't
Yeah.
see how that and I also love at the end how she sort of says it was irresponsible to label all predators as savage. Like I like that she owns up to the mistake that she made too.
And I like that Nick calls her out on it. Like after she does the whole conference and he's like, "What the heck was that about?" And she's like, "Well, you're not like them." And he's like, "Oh, so there's a them now." And she's like, "No, you know what I mean." And he's like, "No, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
You need to check yourself, friend."
I think that's one thing that this movie did really well was sort of like take the concept of prejudice and unconscious bias and the types of things that we have carried along with us as a society, no matter who it is towards. Like, is it towards body size? Is it towards sexual orientation? Is it towards race, gender, culture? Like, what is that unconscious bias or just right out bias or right out prejudice or subconscious prejudice, like whatever it is. Like, the movie does make it very palatable and upfront and in your face about these issues that we still struggle with today in today's society. So I think this movie is still really important.
I think so too. And I don't think it's fair to write it off because of a very, very small. I mean, I know that it plays a prominent role through the plot of the movie, but at the end of the day, it's not about that. It's not about her being a cop. It's about everyone unlearning and relearning. And also just balancing, like I said at the beginning, balancing hard work and determination, being optimistic without being naive or toxic positivity or anything like that. So yeah, I would love for more people to watch this movie because I think there are a lot of great lessons, like you said, that are in your face, but I don't think it's like it's done really well. It's not heavy-handed, but it's also not so subtle. Because you know how sometimes in some movies and TV shows, they're trying to make a point and they just kind of like force it in there. And it's like, it's a little too jarring. And you can tell that like it was kind of an afterthought and they just want to make a statement and things. But I feel like in this, they do a really good job because that's the lesson of this movie.
Well, and I also think it does a good job of showcasing like you can have done the work and you can be an ally and you can still make mistakes.
Yeah. Yes. And what's important is that you take accountability for those mistakes and try to do better. Again, when you know better, you do better. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. I'm kind of excited but scared for the sequel that's coming out next year. I don't know
I
if you
didn't
would
know.
even. Oh yeah, I don't know when they announced it, but they're doing a sequel to Zootopia. There are little Zootopia shorts on Disney Plus right now that are super super cute. I don't know if you've seen those. I think you would get a kick out of them. Oh, they're great. They're amazing. You're gonna love them. Yeah, it's cute. It's just all very very cute. This is a very cute movie with a kind of hard lesson for a lot of us. And again, I think they portray it in a really good way that's like very compassionate. And like to your point, I do love that Judy messes up and there's a really big hard conversation that happens because of it.
Yeah. I think to like wrap up the episode, the themes of like failing and still trying, failing and still doing it, I think that's something to really walk away with here. And even though I actually kind of hate the song that Shakira made for this movie, I like some of the lyrics from it. It's like, I want to try everything even though I can fail. And it's like, I think that is a really nice mantra to have, is like, I might fail, but I'm going to try anyway.
And
So,
one of the lyrics is, I might make the same mistakes over and over, but I'm going to keep trying until I'm not making those mistakes anymore. So, yeah, the song, it's not one that I have like on repeat, but just if you listen to it once, look up the lyrics.
it's just not it's just not catchy. You know, I feel like it's poorly written. It's great lyrics, poorly written song.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the same thing kind of over and over and over again for about
Yeah.
2.5 minutes. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, but it's cute.
it is cute. Oh, and also final note, the little boy I babysit obviously likes this movie. He's watched it with me many times, even
Oh,
though I haven't seen bits and pieces of it, but I think he rated this one like a 5 out of 5. So loves Zootopia.
wow. That's our
But
second 5 out of 5 from him.
he's a
Amazing.
big, big fan of Zootopia. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, very fun. Very
Big
fun.
fan of the sloths at the DMV, even though he doesn't understand the joke.
I love that. I mean, it's just funny. It's humor for all ages. Love it.
It
Love it.
is. Like, he thinks it's funny that they're so slow. He doesn't understand that the DMV is the slowest place you could ever go on Earth. So,
DMV. This is horrible. Anyway. I love it. It's amazing. He'll learn one day. He's going to be at the DMV himself in like 10 years time. And he'll be like, oh, I get it now. And I'd love to think that you guys would still be in touch, and he'll text you and he'll be like, I understand.
I hope so. One time I asked him if we'll still be friends when I'm no longer his babysitter, and he was like, duh.
Oh, that's
like, of
sweet.
course. Like,
I love that. I believe it. Anyway, thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time. Why do I feel like I'm forgetting something? I don't know. I've been all over the place this episode. Thank you, HB, for carrying this episode. Truly. MVP.
All right. Stop that. Okay. Thank you everyone so much for listening. We will see you, or we will be with you next week. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Mental Health Multiverse podcast, and for spending time with us, HB and LB. Special shout out to our musical composer, Little HB.
If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, feel free to share it with others, post about it on social media, leave a rating and review, or become an exclusive Patreon member to see bonus and additional content.
To stay up to date on all things MHM, you can follow us on Instagram at Heather Bodie and at littlebit_notbroken, or subscribe to our YouTube channel to see our faces and watch some fun bloopers. You can find all of these links in the show notes.
Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.